Dear friends, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you at our panel discussion. Very happy to see you all. The hall is full, and the topic we're going to discuss is of huge interest to many people. Smart cities, digitalization. These are one of the most pressing issues for mega cities. As I was getting ready for this session, I had read a lot of materials, and this morning we were discussing with my colleague. It's not only interesting, tech-savvy, it's also capital-intensive. And the numbers the experts are throwing in terms of the development of this business, they say that by 2025, the number of smart cities, the value of smart cities will exceed $225 billion. Huge number. Today we're going to discuss not only numbers, but also many other things. How smart cities are affecting everyday life of city residents. To start off, a few housekeeping remarks. The concept, smart city concept, wasn't born yesterday. It's been under discussion for the past 7 years, but the idea of smart city or perfect city, ideal city, we can trace it back to the medieval ages, and I think we've received a blueprint. I don't know if it's true or not, but allegedly a blueprint by Leonardo da Vinci. He tried to draw a perfect city, and that blueprint had a two-level transportation network. There's a wonderful city in the northeast of Italy, Palma Nova, a star-shaped city, and it's credited to Vincenzo Scamozzi. And according to Vincenzo, that was the ideal city. That's what the ideal city would look like. So the evolution of ideal cities, or as we call them now, smart cities, it goes back, many centuries, and from the basic terminals to cyber cities to other concepts. Now we've reached the stage of smart cities, and I think that with the rapid development of IT technologies and science, other technologies, the notion of smart cities has changed. At the beginning of the 20th century, 21st century, we had the concept of smart cities that affects all sides of the city, all aspects of the city's life. Today, at this panel discussion, we're going to discuss, to talk about new opportunities provided by digital services, how technologies are affecting urban processes, what elements of a smart city are being developed in this wonderful city of Moscow, which is hosting this wonderful forum today. It's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers, our guests, those who will be sharing their experience in the development of smart cities. Alexander Gorbatko, Deputy Head of the IT Department, City of Moscow. Vladimir Kirienko, First Vice President, Rostelecom. Mr. Harold Goddijn, CEO, TomTom. Mr. Bertrand Camus, CEO, Suez. Mr. Carlos Moreno, Mayor of Paris, Special Envoy for Smart Cities. Liora Shechter, CTO, Tel Aviv. And Sergey Emdin, CEO of Tele2. Welcome. Thank you so much for finding time to join this panel session. This panel session is being held in this wonderful concert hall, Zaryadye, and as a Moscowite, it's very heartening for me to see that Moscow has been transforming tremendously over the past few years, and great credit for that goes to Sergey Semyonovich Sobyanin, the Moscow mayor. Last year, a concept, Moscow Smart City 2023, was adopted. A very ambitious project. And as a Moscowite, a person who can use the broadest range of services, I can see that Moscow is building a very broad digital platform. Moscow is one of the leading cities in terms of the transport services, digital transport services. And this enables Moscow to be a #1 city according to UN ratings, one of the leading European cities in terms of the digital space development. What can we expect as Muscovites? What are the new challenges facing the Moscow city government? What are the smart city challenges? What are the new digital services that we can expect to come online in the future and help us in the future? And what can be used in other cities? What lessons can be learned from Moscow experience? Thank you. I have a brief presentation about Smart City. Our targeted program has been in effect for several years. Technologies are changing fast, and of course we're keeping track of all trends out there in major cities and major countries. We're communicating closely, engaging closely with our counterparts. Our Smart City concept includes all engineering, technological, service capabilities, and capabilities of people and businesses to develop in the city, because the city is about people, first and foremost. So next slide, please. For some reason, I cannot switch slides. From a smart city standpoint, what does it mean? It's about us, our daily life. Only 24 hours a day, and of course we split that time into sleep, work, development, personal time, and the whole concept and smart city concept, strategy, and targeted program provides for the creation of services that make people's lives easier. And the experience, a wealth of experience we have, allows us to move forward and to provide bespoke services, customized services. In recent years, we were creating a huge number of new services. Now there are more than 300 digital services in Moscow. Every day, Muscovites are using, 75% of Muscovites are using digital services, e-services, from healthcare to transport, education. The system is highly used, and the services are developing all the time. The world is progressing, and thanks to this service, we can compare ourselves to other places. We can look at that we're #1 according to the UN survey, and this allows us to compete with the leading global cities in terms of e-services. Looking at the trends, future trends, of course, human capital matters most. People, their knowledge, their expertise, we need to preserve that. And the more convenient it is for a person to live in the city, the more habitable the city is, livable the city is, the more productive Muscovites are. And we're keeping track of developments at the international organizations. We are keeping track of the UN rating trends. And we see that Moscow is one of the leading cities. But in order to stay in the leading position, we have a lot of technologies which are being rolled out in Moscow. They've been under testing for several years, and we are planning to transform e-services in the forthcoming years based on new technologies. We're going to add AI services, big data, neural networks, which are already being used now. We have a citywide call center, and up to 60% of all incoming calls are handled by artificial intelligence. We had an experiment. We ran an experiment whereby a robot actually didn't introduce itself as a robot, and Muscovites couldn't tell a robot from a human being. And so the artificial intelligence could maintain a conversation with humans. And of course, this helps us to respond quickly to whatever inquiries Muscovites might have or whatever problems they might have. And also gives us a good indication of what's happening in the city. We are keeping track of the trends, possible issues, challenges, and we using AI capabilities, we can process the incoming calls very quickly. Internet of Things, another area. We are developing it as part of our utilities services. There are still some technological hurdles we're trying to overcome. I'm going to get to that later. It has something to do with the technological development of the city, and it relates to investment opportunities for businesses. Previously, we were in the habit of creating a lot of different services. Nowadays, we see that residents want to receive customized services on an increasingly, and we're trying to address this. This is the upper layer. What we see, the number of smartphones, now 230% cell phone coverage, and we count SIM cards, and there are a lot of devices that are constantly used by residents, different tablets, smartphones, sensors, and these technologies allow residents to receive an increasing number of services. A smart city is not only about people, but also about businesses, allowing businesses to create platforms in order to tap into the existing opportunities and stay ahead of the game. We are developing infrastructure. Sometimes infrastructures are private. For example, all cell phone operators are private, and they invest in the city. They help in creating infrastructure, setting stage for new services. We are employing many companies to analyze data, to process data, and a lot of commercial companies are getting the results of data processing. And in the last few years, many companies have been using car sharing, taxi services, online food delivery services, and other services. And every Muscovite now can use these services thanks to the existing infrastructure. In order to improve the infrastructure this year, thanks to the Ministry of Telecommunications and telecom operators that are ready to invest into Moscow, we are launching 4 sites, 4 5G sites. These technologies are going to drive services in the future. It will not only improve the speed, but also address the bottlenecks. Last year, we pilot tested a program which allowed people to be virtually present at sports stadia. So we're launching these several sites this year. Not only pilot stage, but this infrastructure will be up and running using 5G networks. It will be available to the residents, to startups, to businesses, and businesses will have a chance to pilot run or pilot test these services. So a few projects I wanted to touch upon. These are the projects we're going to launch this year. We're going to monitor the startups. They're going to tap into these services. Even though now we don't quite understand how we're going to recoup the 5G costs, we understand that it's a launchpad for development. Several years ago, we didn't have Yandex and many other high-tech companies, and so they emerged as startups and then they added to the service pool. That's the route we're going to take in Moscow. We have a site. We've agreed with the major 5G equipment manufacturers, and our startup businesses will be able to pilot test any solutions and any equipment. So we're going to involve as many companies as possible and as many creative young people as possible. And 5G is a hot topic, and people are debating to what extent this is going to affect the environment situation. In Russia, we still have the regulations dating back to the 90s. So the regulatory framework should be brought in line with the current day realities, and we're engaging with the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Telecommunications, to make sure that it doesn't have an adverse effect on the health of residents. So this is it in a nutshell. Thank you very much. Interesting presentation. A follow-up question on 5G. Let's say if we end up, for example, you find yourself on the Tverskaya street. So how is going to change Muscovites' lives by the end of the year? Tverskaya Street. We're going to have this project. Tverskaya project is going to be run by Tele2. And Sergey, could you just very briefly, or when you have your present? Well, thank you for this opportunity. Yes, we are in charge of Zaryadya and Tverskaya Street projects. The goal of our pilot project is to make as many services available as possible, something very tangible, services for gamers, for online broadcasting, broadcasting of 4K broadcasting, many other areas. We're still thinking about the cases we're going to use and apply, but we want to make them simple, basic, and understandable to residents. All European capitals are competing for the title of the smart city. I'm very happy that we have Mr. Moreno, who is a special envoy for smart cities of the mayor of Paris. Carlos, a question to you. How is Paris formulating its smart city strategy? What are the services? What are the main goals to improve living standards or to provide control, monitoring over private lives? Because many people against smart cities, this is the argument they use.
Yeah, thank you for the kind invitation. Definitely, in the city of Paris, we have been developing a very powerful strategy at the Horizon 2020 and beyond, of course. Today, for the city of Paris, the most important challenge for the next decade is the climate change. The city of Paris is fully committed about it. The city of Paris has been signed the Paris Agreement in the framework of the COP21. And our main guideline focused on smart city is based on two targets: to develop a post-carbon city and at the same time reinventing urban commons. We have the very concrete actions because we has transformed this motorway in the center of Paris, in the bank of the River Seine, and today this is one of the most important urban parks. This is the park of Rive de Seine, with the real empowerment by citizens in order to recreate urban life, to recreate the actions to share city, to rediscover biodiversity, to rediscover the Seine River. This is the second very, very concrete actions to involve citizens in the transformation of cities, the participatory budgeting. We are one of the cities most totally involved to use 10% of our budget only for citizens who want to propose different projects each year. Our budget is 8 billion euros. We allow with 800 million euros for developing by citizens projects. This is the action of economic development. This is the Station F. This is the biggest incubator for startups in Europe. The Station F, this is a public and private project. And in fact, this is the international context, reinventing cities. Reinventing cities is the new approach to use or reuse the place of cities. We have been starting with Paris, and then we involved the metropolises, and today we are with the network C40 cities, more than 150 sites around the world with 13 cities which take part in this international concept, reinventing cities. About climate change, of course, this is today the main challenges. We have challenges, opportunity, and ambitions. The challenges, climate change, the development of urbanization, and of course, resource scarcity. We need today to develop a post-carbon city with a green city, water, urban agriculture, social inclusion, and resilience. The digital transformation is for the city of Paris in a real biggest opportunity to transform with the new services, the digital economy, smart mobilities, smart public service, and in particular to use the urban data as a service. The ambition for us is to reinventing cities for all citizens, the quality of life, the tactical urbanism, promoting shared resources, and to develop the city of the short distances. We consider that one of the key to solve the very big problem about mobility in cities is to disappear mobilities based on short distances in cities. Our concept is the city of 15 minutes. We have the possibility to offer to citizens the essential urban social functions in a very short perimeter, 15 minutes with soft mobilities. This is a very important program, and the city of Paris is a pioneer in this way. In fact, the open city for us is a method, and the connectivity, the digital solution is not a target itself. It's only a tool, a powerful tool, but only a tool. In this way, we have been developing the concept of open innovation, open data, open governance, citizen participation, and innovative ecosystem. And we propose for the connectivity several tools based on open platforms. Open platforms for citizens, open platforms for Internet of Things, digital inclusion, and the possibility to develop new services. This is the axis based on sustainable cities. This is the axis based on open cities, citizen involvement, collaborative projects, research, to host, to welcome researchers of around the world, promoting public innovation. Connected city, of course, we need to develop still more infrastructures for digital services. We need to offer new digital public services, and we need to use data to optimize. We need today a very important challenges at the Horizon 2024, because the city of Paris will welcome the Olympic Games. This is a very great opportunity, because the city of Paris and the mayor of Paris has been developing a very large and powerful ecosystem based on three concepts. The first, ecological games, the first inclusive games and the first games using the massive technology in order to recreate new services for reusing after the Olympic Games. The new eco-district in the north of Paris is a temporary residence for sport.
Карл, спасибо большое. Вот на этой картинке мы знаем, что
Thank you very much. Yes, we know about the Olympic Games in 2024. We know about the renovation projects around the Eiffel Tower. And you use BIM technology. And as a result, you want to make sure that every building which you renovate around this Eiffel Tower, you will have the smart building passport. Maybe you can spend 1 or 2 minutes telling us more about this project. What will be the benefits of this initiative?
Today, because the city of Paris considered that the renovation of buildings, the renovation of sites, the renovation of attractive sites today is very important if we want to develop this capability for cities to fix citizens and to organize better tourism in cities. The city of Paris is, after Singapore, is the second city with high density. The only possibility today to develop a sustainable city is to develop a very involved actions to building based on sustainable architecture. In particular, you use now the wood, the natural resources, and we have been developing a very large program in the Tour Eiffel, in the iconic places, the Place des Nations, Opera, Bastille, to develop the urban park, greening urban park. We need today to redeploy the biodiversity, the nature, in cities. And this is very important because we could offer the city to pedestrians. We need today to ban cars, in cities. We need to develop the pedestrian attitudes, the bikeable attitudes to rediscover city without diesel car, without fine particles. We need to rediscover a real, not only sustainable city, but healthy city. And this is a very important commitment of the Mayor of Paris for the next year, and I hope for the next years, because we have the elections in the next year.
Спасибо. Ну, я думаю, у вас есть, вот, если вы первый раз...
Thank you very much. So if you visit Zaryadye for the first time, you now have an opportunity to visit this park, and I think you'll really be able to enjoy it. Thank you very much. One of the main drivers of digitalization, of course, is the set of telecommunication companies, and one of the leaders of Russia, Rostelecom, is a good example. Vladimir, you have a new strategy which is rather ambitious, and one of the main bullet points in your agenda sounds like conquering the market of new housing. And actually, I learned for the first time about this technology of smart barrier or smart intercom, because very often you come to a barrier, you want to enter some housing complex, and the sensor doesn't work, you can't open the barrier, it's a problem. And it's great that you're proposing such new technologies, and you have rather ambitious goals of improving the revenue from such projects. So what's going on? Tell us about your new initiatives, please. Thank you very much. Yes, you don't need such a sensor anymore. You can enter the housing complex because there will be, because your license plates will be recognized automatically. We now see that more and more people start living in the cities, and there is higher burden on housing, utilities and infrastructure. And of course, we need to do everything to improve the living standards. Smart cities, that's not something very static. That's the constant improvement, and we need to use more and more technologies. For Rostelecom, smart technologies, digital technologies is a high priority. And we do believe that this can create additional value for the city. We have three main focus points: security, efficiency in infrastructure management, and comfort for Muscovites. Let's start with security. We started with 112 number technology. After that, we introduced weight and size control, another technology. And a lot of cities in Russia have already introduced our technologies proposed by Rostelecom. Now we are working actively with video surveillance in Novosibirsk, Tyumen, St. Petersburg. Authorities use our solutions. We have more than 3,000 video cameras in the network, and we process more than 1 billion hours of video recorded. This processing is done automatically. We have video analysis. We can improve the security. We can make sure that the city becomes more safe. We have one interesting project in St. Petersburg, which is called Safe St. Petersburg. Every person can download such application and transfer some data about some car accident, for example. You don't need to call an operator. You just start this, open this application. The streaming starts, and a dispatcher can understand what kind of help you may need, sending necessary help. We have a hypothesis that if city authorities receive some video screens, this is public property. So, for example, if somebody sees some accident, the person can enter this application and can order this, can ask the shot from one of the cameras nearby to be sent to him, so that he understands better what's really happened. We also do a lot with improving the efficiency of housing and utility services and security of public transport. Why is it good for municipalities and for city authorities? It is not very expensive. So, for example, we as investors, we create infrastructure, and as a result, authorities can save money by using our smart solutions. Car transport and traffic. I live in Moscow, and yes, I can see that there is some progress, and some things are improving, but we still have problem with high traffic in Moscow. And we think that artificial intelligence can help to monitor and regulate the operation of traffic lights in the city. Software development, that's also what we do. So, of course, hardware is necessary, but if we have good software, this can also help. So, for example, we have the digital housing and utility platform, and all the Muscovites can get information about capital renovations or meetings of everyone who lives in the city. They can get statistics about payments they have to make for utility services. We have more than 500 sensors which collect information about heat and energy consumption. Besides, all the municipalities now have unified environment where they can share information. So this is a very good new environment which is very efficient. In retail, there is the labor force management system, which is used very actively. So you can manage your personnel according to that, and we do the same in the utility sphere. So, for example, every employee, plumbers or yard keepers, drivers, they get a smartphone. A smartphone is not connected to the internet. You can't watch videos from the smartphone, but you can get your assignments and you can make photos reporting about the fulfillment of the assignments. This is artificial intelligence. You can't fake photos. There is geo-targeting. That's why it's very, very efficient. Municipalities reduce the efforts they need to apply to manage labor force. We also always try to be very interactive with citizens of cities, because I think a citizen himself is the best controller, and they can actually use applications, downloading it from App Store or Google Store. They can make photos if there are some problems, for example, with garbage lying around the house, so they can create assignments for utility personnel, and this helps civil officials to be more efficient, because some of the work is done by citizens themselves. We talked about energy efficiency, but I would say that our main goal is not to achieve some economic result, but we want to focus a human being, because for the smart city, we need to help people live in a more comfortable environment, in a more motivating or intellectual environment. So we can help people with some electronic services, healthcare services, and I think that in the future you won't need to go to some office to receive certain documents. Everything will be done automatically and electronically. Thank you very much. I think if some plumbers are listening to us now, they will understand, oh, everything will be registered. You won't be able to get some extra money by working on the side. I actually know the statistics for Moscow, and I do understand that a huge number of crimes which are detected, actually they are detected due to the video surveillance in Moscow. And this really helps with the level of criminality, and such services, they do make Moscow safer. I have a small remark to make. Actually, plumbers start earning more. It's like Yandex Taxi, when you can very quickly order some of the services, and they can provide such services quickly. They will get more money as a result for the work they do. A lot of startups were originated in Tel Aviv, and I'd like to give the floor to Liora. Liora, you have a lot of responsibility with regards to municipalities, because you are CEO of the largest city. Can you tell us about what's going on in your city? What are the challenges? What are the strategies with regards to the smart city project?
First of all, I'm very glad to be here in your beautiful city. And I'll elaborate a little bit about the motto of Tel Aviv Smart City. So, first of all, Alexander spoke about e-services, and of course it's a very trivial and important stage in building a smart city, and I'll just giving you a few examples of how it's done in Tel Aviv. So, for instance, let's take parking permits in the city. In Tel Aviv, 100% of the parking permit is issued digitally. How it's done? we proactively send SMS to people that her parking permit is about to expire. With a link, they press, fill the details, and after 3 days, someone will knock on their door and hand them their new parking permit. So it's not about making things digitally, but the level of service that we are trying to give to each one of the services. So, for instance, reporting a hazard, we have a very beautiful app. 20% of the reports are done with the app. Kindergarten registration, for instance, is 88% done digitally this year. School registration, 92% digitally. Digital registration, and I will elaborate on digital. This is our residents club. 80% is done digitally. We have done a revolution around construction. So to know your building rights, what you can do on your building, it's done only digitally. To see your building file, all the sketches, all the permit, it's 100% digitally. Of course, we close the center service that gives the ability to do it. And to ask a new building permit, it's 100% digitally. For the past 2 years, you cannot come to the municipality anymore for that purpose. So that was the first stage, very basic stage, but I think in Tel Aviv about 80 to 90% of the services are already digitalized. But we wanted to do more than that, if my clicker will permit me. We wanted to invent new services, change the goal of the municipality. So in order to do that, we understand that we had to move to a personalized service, treat each one of the residents differently. So in order to do that, what we did need is a little bit of information about each one of the residents. His age, is he married, children, how many, and even interests and hobbies. So when we had that kind of information, we created a Residents Club of Tel Aviv, which aims to proactively give each one personal information, and I will demonstrate in a second. We arrange a lot of events, free events around the city for each part of the population, free from the side of the municipality, and we give a lot of e-services as I demonstrated. Just to demonstrate what is a personal information. Let's say that a water pipe has broken in your street. We know that you live there, and then we'll send you an SMS proactively saying the water pipe has broken, we are fixing it. That's trivial. It's a more traditional line of business of municipality. But if we have an activity for kids in the near community center, and we know that you have a small child and you live nearby, then we proactively invite you to come to the store reading or show that takes place today at 4 o'clock. So from the perspective of the resident, the municipality is thinking about him. He's not trying to collect more taxes, but is trying really to improve the quality of life of the residents. Another example, we did a joint venture with all the theaters in the city. And if one of the shows is not full, we collect the tickets and proactively offer them with a big discount, has to be the best discount in town, to residents that said that they like culture. So we are trying to transform the relationship between the residents and the municipality. More examples of event. For instance, every Friday, right on the rooftop of the municipality, we organize free yoga. But not only that, in Tuesday, it's free dancing for the elderly, right in the entrance of the municipality. On Tuesday, it's a playground for children, right in the place that you pay taxes in. So we are trying to make the municipality as a one big community center. We even have a little bit funny app that allows you to rent beach facilities and pay for them. And the aim is to reduce the cost of living in the city. It's very low prices of beach facilities, because in Tel Aviv the cost of living is very high. You would ask, is it successful, the digital club, the residence club? So after 5 years of operation, we have now 70% of the city population engaged in digital. So more than 220,000 people are members of digital, and we are not such a big city, a little bit less than 500,000. So if you look at the elderly, we're about 70% of the population. So after having that amount of people, we understand that we can divide them into sub-community. And one important sub-community that we issued last year is the parents for very small children. We call it mini-digi. And we organize workshop for the parents, free, of course, how to raise the child, how to feed them, and so on. It's done in the municipality buildings. And we organize events for parents. Last month we had 600 different events, free, all spread around the city for our residents. So it's a very big success. And to add a new layer is we want really to engage the residents, not only give them things that make them a partner in running and living in the city. So we organize a lot of public participation events. This one is about renovation of their own neighborhood, and we ask them what should be done in their neighborhood, and actually they know better than us what should be done because they live there every day. Of course, we have an app that reports hazards and makes them really a partner in running the municipality. And to conclude, the motto is, in every important moment of the resident's life, the municipality is with him and for him. So I didn't share with you all the strategy of Smart City, just the motto, not the startups, how do we run more efficiently, but I think it's important to demonstrate.
Лера, спасибо большое. Уникальный опыт.
Thank you so much. Unique experience. And Carlos, sitting here, mentioned that there is a beach area on the River Seine embankment. Unfortunately, we don't have the sea in Moscow, but a lot of rivers. Of course, we would like to have a bit of the sea. But for you, before you build the perfect city, what is the most important step that we need to make, or you need to take, in order to build the city of dreams, the perfect city? What's just in a nutshell, in one sentence, what's the most important step that you need to take in order to build an ideal city?
First of all, it's not about infrastructure, it's not about IoT, it's not about technology. The first step is understand how you want really to have the relationship between the residents and the municipality, and how you can gain their trust, because it's not trivial for them to belong to the city population, and really contribute to the building of the city. So I believe in order to build the relationship, trust is the most important thing.
Спасибо. Спасибо.
Thank you so much. I think it's hard, nowadays it's hard to imagine people's lives, particularly motorists' lives, without a stable navigation system. So it's indispensable for any motorist. I think 20 years ago, every Moscow motorist had a huge atlas, a huge compilation of maps. I saw such maps, a huge volume. I'm sure I wouldn't have gotten too far with such maps. I would have probably taken the metro. We have Harold Goddijn, TomTom CEO, and he is. I'm not advertising his company. Every time I go to Europe, I'm using his app. I'm using his products. The question to you: how is TomTom developing new urban services, city services? I know you're venturing out into new areas. you're working with Denso. You are developing navigation system for self-drive cars. What are you doing in this area? Have you already taken a pilotless car ride?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's 20 years ago, indeed, that we brought navigation to a much broader audience. Before TomTom, you could only buy navigation as part of a very expensive car, and we changed that. But also in the last 20 years, the nature of mobility has changed dramatically, and our company has changed with that. Our focus 20 years ago was to help people find their destination, but that has long changed. Now, our focus now and our mission now is to make roads safer, to make roads less congested, and to make roads cleaner and make the environment cleaner. And there's a lot happening in mobility, of course, that is helping us to achieve those goals, and we can't do that ourselves, but we're providing to other tech firms in the community essential components to help shaping mobility in a different way. One of the important things we're doing is we are mapping traffic. So also here in Moscow, we can follow and trace 1 out of 7 cars that are driving on the motorway each day. And that helps us to build a picture of traffic flows, congestion, where are people coming from, where are they going to, where are the roads blocked or closed, or where are workings taking place, and so on and so forth. And that helps, together with technology, to get a more data-driven approach to traffic and understanding what's happening. And we provide those data also to the municipality, so they have a real-time vision of what's happening on the road network, and give them the data and the tools to see what the effects of their policies are, whether they're progressing, and the city of Moscow is making tremendous effort and tremendous investment in reducing congestion and improving the fluidity of the city. But it's also up against a growing economy and a growing population. But we help to get a feel for what's going on, do that data-driven, so you can make better informed decisions. And that's our contribution also to this city. I think if you look forward, then there is a big, of course, change happening in electrification. We all understand that traffic is not good for the environment, and combustion engines are not good for the environment. There's a massive investment going on in electrification, and we're helping there as well by providing technologies for optimizing range, make sure that you know where you can recharge, when you need to recharge, and so on and so forth. And lastly, our contribution is to help make driving safer. There's an enormous amount of casualties each year. It's actually an unacceptable number, an acceptably high number of people get caught in accidents every year. And there's new technology on the horizon to automate driving to a higher extent than what we're doing today. Eventually that will lead to completely self-driving cars, but I think the most exciting bit, and what's really on the horizon, is that we can make cars really safer by equipping them with cameras and other sensors. So part of the decision making that the driver normally do can be handed over to the computer, and that will hopefully, and that's our full expectation, lead to much safer roads in the near future. Thank you.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you so much. Even though we've been talking about various technological shifts and transformations based on digital technologies, major cities are always faced with a challenge of water supply, smart recycling, waste disposal. I would like to give the floor to the next speaker, Mr. Bertrand Camus. is the CEO of Suez. Bertrand, I know that this year you entered into an agreement with Mos-Inch project, speaking of dealing with the disposal of soil in Moscow. And it had something to do with the extension of the Moscow metro lines. You're one of the global leaders in terms of water supply technologies and waste disposal technologies. What's your involvement and your application of new technologies in this very crucial area of urban life? Thank you.
Before I go to the specifics of what we do in Moscow, a word about Suez. So we are a global operator of water systems and also waste systems. We do everything you can dream about water and waste. It's a very large company, 90,000 employees. We are working on the 5 continents. And as the colleagues around the table, we are of course totally impacted by the digital revolution. And just to illustrate it, I selected one app. I have plenty of apps. Unfortunately, I don't have a camera to show you all what I have on my phone. Because I'm not going to speak about the possibility to pay online, to receive your bill, and so on. But we have one in a very nice city called Biarritz, south of France, known for its waves. You have surf competition there. The world tour is stopping there. And we have an app about the water quality of the ocean. You select your beach. You have here a flag about the condition. Blue if it's safe, yellow if it's a little bit dangerous, is red if it's forbidden, and then the quality of the water, which is excellent today. And that is not just a reporting, it's an expert system that anticipates the water quality, because what can impact the quality of the water is when there is rain, overflows, which bring pollution to the ocean. And we are mixing the data of knowing well the system, weather forecast that tells us where it is going to rain, with which intensity. We have a model simulating the marine currents, and we are able, by anticipation, 24 hours before, to say 6 hour by 6 hour tranches if the water is going to be safe or not in terms of quality. So it's just an illustration of how far the digital revolution is entering into our world and helping us to develop services for municipalities. I don't know if Tel Aviv is already equipped with this system, but we would be more than happy to discuss after if you are interested in. And just to make a link with Paris, we are thinking about having some competition in the Seine River in 2024. It's part of the Olympic game competition. And we are going to use those technologies, not so much to prevent all the pollutions, but to be able to tell, is it going to be safe or not to swim in the Seine River when you have scheduled the competition. So now moving to waste, you can imagine also that a lot is happening in terms of trying to solve this major issue, which is all of us purchase goods, produce waste. We put everything in a black bag, and then at the end, we hope that with some sorting, we will be able to recover materials and enter into the circular economy. Of course, digital is going to be a solution for that in the future, to be able to trace the waste, sort it more automatically, and then to reuse the goods. And this is what we are doing here in Moscow with the Mos-Inch project, where we have signed an agreement to develop a joint venture around the tunnels that are being built are producing a lot of mud, a lot of sludge that has to be treated to be able to reuse it. And therefore we have developed a project, first of all, to ensure the traceability to make sure that whatever is excavated, we know exactly where it is and where is it going, and then develop treatment to be able to reuse this earth for other works. You have been speaking about construction, deconstruction of a lot of buildings, and there are a lot to be developed on that, as construction and demolition waste is representing 30% of the world waste, and it's a major issue in cities. Just as a word of conclusion, we are now moving to another step, which is working with other providers of utilities to develop smart command centers, and we have one in the city of Dijon in France. It's capital of Burgundy for the amateur of wine, or the capital of French mustard for the amateur of mustard. And it's a very interesting case. It's functional, so if you have the opportunity or if you want to visit it, you can visit it, and we can work on the hybridation and the cross fertilization of utilities to develop new services. We have, for example, smart traffic violation tickets, because a policeman is seated behind, and thanks to the cameras, is able to issue tickets. And once again, that's something that is very, very interesting. And whenever you need information, I think you can find it on the web, and we'll be glad to explain it a little bit more in detail.
Бернар, спасибо большое. Вот в развитии.
Thank you very much. I'd like to elaborate more on the use of new technologies. Mobile operators are now doing a lot for introducing new technologies. We actually can't imagine our life without a smartphone. You will never forget your home at home. You just can't spend your day without a smartphone. You don't need any folder with papers or a suitcase or a briefcase. Tele2 is one of the leading mobile operators in Russia. Can you tell us about your main projects? There are a lot of new technologies, and telecommunication companies are always pioneers in such spheres as machine learning, AI, Internet of Things. How can your technologies improve the standard of living for people? Thank you very much. I would agree with my colleagues. When we're talking about a smart city, we need to focus on a human being. But I'm going to talk about technologies, because if we have technologies, we'll be able to satisfy all the needs of the people and make them happy using technologies efficiently. I think in Russia, we have great basic infrastructure for mobile operators, because there was fierce competition in the past years and throughout lots of territories where people live. And I'm not talking only about super cities. We have a great coverage, 4G coverage, and also, the cost of services is rather affordable. I would say that in Russia, the cost of mobile services is the lowest throughout the world. Infrastructure, that's something that we need very much. Yes, you can forget your passport at home, you can forget about your wallet, but you will never leave a home without a smartphone in your pocket. And I'd like to tell you more about interesting technologies that we have and that we should use, especially when we are talking about megalopolises. For example, the Internet of Things. Of course, this helps us to read meters, it helps us to manage infrastructure, and the Internet of Things in the future will help us to have self-driving cars, buses, and we'll be able to manage lots of services in healthcare and so on. What about some other technologies? Security. There are lots of peak moments for offline and online services. That's normal. And if some services working with liquidating the consequences of emergency situations, they need to make sure there are no problems with overload of online services. Such special services, they need to have a dedicated range, especially for the cases when there are emergencies. We used such technology for the World Cup last year. Next thing, technology of remote identification. That's something very important for the technology of the future. For example, mobile ID. Through the SIM card module, your identification is going, and you don't need to introduce different passwords, and you don't need two-factor identification. This technology is really revolutionary because this will help us to manage the city better. This will help us to manage existing and future infrastructure. And I'm sure that very soon we'll see the massive use of big data for predictive analytics. So, for example, we won't need to survey the population about the new service, for example, about new element of the infrastructure. We'll be able to get information about the behavior of people. We'll analyze their behavior, and we'll get answer to our questions. And the last but not the least, we know about a number of new uses for the 5G technology. And it's, I think it's very important to understand that we don't understand what kind of technologies will be mostly used, because we have a lot of startups and entrepreneurs who can start working with new inventions, and 5G is the technology which will transform the world completely, and the world will be absolutely different from what we know right now. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are behind the schedule slightly. I'd like to thank all the speakers for participation in this interesting discussion. This topic is extremely urgent at the current moment. And of course, we remember that a human being, a citizen, is the main priority for those who are developing smart cities. Thank you very much and have a great day. Thank you, dear audience.